We are live, and we are kind of wet here in Atlanta. Luckily, we didn't get a lot of the Francine stuff, but well, we got a little bit. Anyway, it's still a great Friday. I'm just glad to be here, folks. I just got back from a late flight from Vegas, but I'm here and I'm happy because I get to spend some time with some of the smartest folks in the small business atmosphere. I'll put it like that. And I always like to welcome Small Biz Trends Leland McFarland, because this is the Small Biz Trends Breakdown. So, Leland, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. Just enjoying a little bit of rain over here ourselves.
Oh, you finally got a little rain. That's good.
Finally got it. Broke the 3-month drought.
Let's see if it's raining in Cleveland with even a Taylor.
It is not raining because you can see me brightly and clearly. We are having some of the most beautiful weather. So, yeah, we're enjoying that last bit of summer.
And not new to small business. Of course, he's not new to small business, but he's new to this. What is this, week 5? This is our 5th show here.
5th week.
So I'm going to bring on Barry, but I'm going to ask, I don't know, Ivana or Leland, I want to ask either of you to actually introduce Barry Moltz. So say hello to Barry. Barry, thanks for joining us, man.
I've been waiting 4 weeks to get on this episode, right? I've been saying, when are they going to invite me? So I'm so glad to be here.
Hey, Ivana, what would you say about Barry?
You know what? Barry has some of the best small business branding, I think, out there. I'm not sure if he's using it as much anymore, but Barry is the absolute king of getting small businesses unstuck. He is an author. He is a speaker. He is a podcaster, radio host, and sends out some of the best weekly newsletters. So if you have not signed up for it, get yourself on that list. Thoughtful, provoking, informative. Barry Moltz, yay!
Now for a rebuttal from my wife.
Hey, it's worth coming on the show just to hear, even give you that kind
something
of
positive. I just want to hear something positive.
All right.
That was off the top of my head, so you know that was like totally.
It was off the top of her head, but right from the bottom of her heart, Barry. You gotta like that kind of stuff.
What do they do now? Heart like this?
Something like that. Yeah. All right. So we know we've only got Barry for a limited time only. Sounds like the McRib or something. But I wanted to go back to something that we talked about last week. I believe we did talk about the Canva thing. It was just last week, right? To kind of lose a little fun. Anyway, so I was at a conference just a couple hours ago, actually. Oracle Cloud World, and one of the keynotes, one of their executives said something that I want Canva to listen to. Here it goes.
First demo how AI improved Salesforce automation through productivity gains. I'm going to show you in the next demo how it improves finance and back office through productivity gains. Those are applications we deliver to you. Those are services we offer to you, our customers. We do not charge you extra for AI. And in fact, I'm not even sure how we would charge you extra for AI. These are the tool that we use to embed to make our applications better. Just like.
All right. That's all I needed to hear from that guy. Actually, he's a great guy, Steve Miranda. But did you catch what he said? Canva. I hope you caught what he said. Did anything that Steve said catch anybody's attention here besides mine?
Well, we want to mention AI as much as we can because it helps the stock price, right? So,
yeah, but maybe this is one for either Leland or Ivana, since we talked about the Canva price increase and why they say because they have this great AI, they have to increase prices by 300%.
I still think, just looking at their price model, this was always their plan. They're just using AI as a scapegoat because they charge $15 for 5 people. But then if you do the math and you go 5 times $15 per month, it kind of turns into their new price model. And I think that it was always the plan to hook people on teams, get them invested, get them to the point to where they can't leave. And then they go, oh, now we're going to jack up our price.
I just wanted to blast them. That's quite honestly what I wanted to do with that. All right. Didn't want to spend a whole lot of time, but maybe I'll actually introduce Canva to Steve Miranda because I actually kind of know him a little bit. Anyway, All right, so for this week, something that caught my attention, and I wanted to see if it caught your attention too. I want to make sure I don't I think this is the right one. Here we go. All right. Now, this might have been around for a bit, but I'm not a big Shark Tank person either. But apparently, this Kevin O'Leary is one of the. Doesn't he have like a nickname or something, Mr. Lovely or something like that?
Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful. I remember that as a wrestler, but okay.
I'm Mr. Lovely, so he's Mr.
Right. So apparently, he has partnered on this technology to make it more affordable and easier for small businesses to advertise on TV. So I'm going to play this little 30-second commercial, and then I'm going to ask you guys about it.
As an investor in many small businesses, I know how hard it is to acquire new customers using only social media. TV advertising works, but for years it's been too expensive and was hard to measure. So I fixed it and created Wonder Ads. Powered by Tatari, Wonder Ads makes TV advertising as simple as digital ad platforms. You'll know what creative is working across all TV networks and streaming services with metrics like customer acquisition cost and return on ad spend. Scale your business on TV at wonderads.com.
All right. Is this legit? I mean, do you think small businesses can really do this and it'll be actually effective for them advertising on TV, even if it's using some sort of a platform like this?
I don't know. It looks to. I am not some type of ad specialist. So if anyone's watching who's like a Google Ads person, social media ads person, like that type of person, I'd love it if you would jump in here and give us a comment. But all I'm going to say is, I think he's filling the need. The selling proposition is really about like the analytics, because small businesses can advertise on TV via cable and such. I had a local client who advertised on like a cable program, and it wasn't like terrible, right? But what I did notice that was lacking, and it is lacking, is a lot of those analytics. And a few weeks ago, one of the first times we talked, we were going through a news thing, and I was, streaming radio. Remember I talked about the fact that you can now place hyper local targeted ads on streaming platforms like Spotify and so on and so forth. And that, I believe, gives you that type of data. He mentioned a platform in there powered by, I don't know what, Katabi. I don't know what that is. I want to know what that is.
Shazam.
I don't know what that means.
Shazam.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's some technology company.
I thought that was an app to listen to songs. That's what they were.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
See, like I think you can already do that. I think he's just trying to scrape money off of small businesses. I'm not sure I'm happy about it. I don't know. I don't have enough information.
I think one of the things that small business owners need is actually to produce some of these things. And I think that AI has made it incredibly simple to do it. I was working with a client where we actually created a 3-minute video for her just using AI. I recorded her voice, turned it into a script, told us what kinds of pictures we wanted to see, and it created a 3-minute video, and we kept tweaking it. Give me a woman's voice, give me an older woman's voice. So I think very easily you can come up with something that could potentially be on television or something else without spending a lot of money on production.
Leland?
I would be a little hesitant because, I mean, I just know that, yeah, it's expensive. And just to be told, oh, it's not expensive anymore. It's like,
So expensive.
Isn't that what Campbell said? No, I'm just kidding. I want to go back.
And then there's the targeting. It's like, okay, I'm going to go on a national channel, or is this only for local channels? You know, I guess I would just need to know a little bit more information, because I could see this for, like, say, a national small business brand, someone that's trying to reach a broader market. That would be good. But for like the plumber or the electrician or someone that is local, the local shop, the local flower shop, I don't know if this is going to be necessarily a good use of their advertising revenue, where with social media, you know, you can get a locally targeted ad, and you can segment your audience and go, I'm looking for people in this. I'm looking maybe for the man of the house. or I'm the flower shop is looking for the woman in the house. You can target so much with social media, but generally with TV ads, it's kind of like a shotgun approach rather than a sniper approach.
I want to see him on Shark Tank and answer some Shark Tank questions on that. I found that ad to be extremely vague. Don't know what opportunity and what gap analysis he did, but it smells so much. It smells so much of small businesses. Barry, I know you know a lot about this. What I've seen, small businesses have not done the work on their research, have not done the work on their offer, have not done the work on their ideal customer. If advertising is expensive, it's because you haven't done that type of work. So it's always going to be expensive until you do that type of work. I don't know. I just feel like I'm sensing taking advantage of. That's just me. Barry, what do you think?
Listen, everyone wants to buy from someone they think is successful, right? Like, Mr. Wonderful. And so, a certain number of people will trust him, will go try it out. Again, just like with any marketing, you have to try to do the smallest test to see if it works. A former client of mine, Scott Jordan, he primarily sold his stuff over television. And it took a long time to test and see which demographics really worked and which shows it really worked on. So just like with anything else, test it out, see if it works.
I don't know much about that dude, but I wouldn't trust him after seeing that 30 seconds. I know he likes to make money, and he's partnered on this. So this is for his business. This is basically him doing a TV commercial to get us to give him the money. I don't know.
I can't get that out of my head, Brent. I can't.
But Brent, you have to understand, in our society, if people are successful in business or they're rich, we think they know, right? So a lot of us want to say, oh, so-and-so was successful. He or she can help me become successful. So that's kind of sort of the way it works. That's why we have spokespeople, right?
You know what? Barry, you've been in business for a long time. Even if you've been in business for a long time, Leland, you've been in business for a long time. Have you ever thought about doing some sort of a television ad thing for your business?
No.
That says something, doesn't it? Well, let me ask, why haven't you done this or gone down this road before?
I would say just because of the kind of industry that I'm in, the content and stuff like that, a TV ad does me nothing. I would need a product behind the ad to be able to sit there and say, okay, if I can get a conversion of this with this product, then I can make a profit. Me just sitting there saying, okay, small business trends, maybe it brings a couple of people, and then I can know for certain that I'm going to lose a lot of money with that.
Here's the problem that I face. I've never done commercials, but I've been, featured on like Marcus Lemonis's The Prophet. I've been on a show on the History Channel, right? It brings all sorts of people out of the woodwork who are not my target audience, right? That the businesses are too small. They don't have any money. They're desperate. They're looking for someone to help them for free, whatever it is, right? So you really, if you're going to do something like this, you really have to narrow down the demographic, and just spraying and praying, in my opinion, doesn't work.
But this guy's going to help you do all that, man. That's what it's all about. All right. No, I am just very curious. I think small businesses, like almost everybody else, are looking for silver bullets, something that they don't know much about, but they hear a lot about. And they figure if they get the right person, they'll handle it all for them. And he just made it sound a little too slick, if you're asking me. So I'm with Evano on this one. It's apparently so is Angelique.
That's Dr. Jackson. She's an amazing woman, part of my community. Shout out to Angelique. Thank you for being here.
Is that Dr. Jackson? No, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go Janet Jackson.
She's an educator. She is an educator, and she's brilliant, and she is got big vision. Got some really cool products too.
Very cool. Very cool. Oh, look at that. She's very courteous too.
Ramon's not here. I'm feeling like maybe he is with us in spirit. I feel like I'm channeling Ramon, and I threw up a little bit in my mouth, even though I love him.
All right, you do know this is recorded and streamed. Anyway, just thought I'd put that out. All right, so this next one is ripped from the headlines of Small Biz Trends. It is Zoho introduces, and I think even you mentioned the term analytics when we were talking a little bit before.
Yes.
So
yes.
Zoho just introduced, well, they've had Zoho Analytics around forever, but they just upgraded it, updated it just this week. And I think I have some of the stuff here. It includes over 100 enhancements, among them new AI and machine learning. So that's cool. That's probably for the more maybe sophisticated small businesses. They have the capabilities to actually not only just leverage or use some of the new Gen AI in the new UI, but if you are getting serious about machine learning, analytics, connecting LLMs, they've done a big upgrade. Leland, I know this is coming from Small Biz Trends. Anything you want to add to that?
I used Zoho Analytics in the past. It was a great tool when I used it before to be able to take data sources from multiple locations and kind of mash them together. Especially when I'm talking about like content and I go, okay, I got this article. How many, and then I grab something from Google Analytics, and then I grab something from the Google AdSense, and then I'm mashing them together. And I'm like, okay, how much money is this making me? How much, time should I be spending on this type of content? And even in the past, it got me some really good results. I've not really been able to dive into this new AI stuff yet, but I'm very interested in being able to have it look at my data and then glean stuff from it and tell me, okay, this is where you need to go. This is where you're making your money. This is what you need to focus in on. This is what you don't need to focus on. Instead of me having to pour over the results and the charts and then make charts and then try to glean that information myself.
Even I see you shaking your head. Oh, Barry.
Oh, Barry, you're muted.
Yeah, which is hardly ever happens. You're muted, Barry.
You would think after 4 years, I'd understand how to unmute the button. This is really something that small business owners miss. They have a lot of data, but they don't have analytics or insights like what Leland was saying. And by combining two or more sources, they can get some insights, some analytics, which really will help their business. So I think this is a major step in the right direction.
Agree completely. In fact, if you could, you picked the most perfect image. Can you go back to the image that you had for that Zoho Analytics? Because I think that right there, because you can see how it's taken the data and it's overlaid it on top of a US map. So anyone who's done sales, you're serving different customers and all these other types of things. As a small business, this is something that's attainable. Right. And as a marketing person who has had to have a lot of training in analytics because I absolutely detest it and I suck at math. I think a tool like this for anyone who is dreading analytics, this could be like your Star Trek computer. That's how I gauge things. I want to live in a world where I just tell the Star Trek computer what I want. Tell me about blah, blah, blah. And it literally digests the data and it gives you the information that you're working for. We're not quite there yet with this tool, with many tools, despite what they tell you. But I think something like this, start small. That's my tip. Well,
I think one of the things about everybody is so focused on AI. I don't think any of us have gone to an event over the last year and a half where AI wasn't front and center. Everybody's talked about it. And maybe this is kind of feeding in from where I just came from, because Oracle is known for databases. I mean, they built their whole business on data and being able to have it in one location. And so one of the upgrades to Zoho Analytics was they even increased the number of data sources that can be integrated and sucked in. So we all have pockets of data in different applications we use and in different areas. And one of the things that they're doing is making it easy to aggregate all that data, because AI really isn't any good unless it has really good data to actually analyze. And so, and you can't analyze data if it's in 1,000 different places. So they have upped the number of sources, data sources that it could be integrated with, and then it actually does do with Azia, their AI. It actually starts being able to take all those data places and aggregate the data, and then coming up with even smarter recommendations and insights and visualizations, like you were talking about there. So I think part of the reason that a lot of small businesses don't do a lot with analytics is because it's been really tough to try to get all the data in one place and then and then do something with it. Not just, oh, it's nice and pretty, it's great, it's here, but not do something in it and actually have some recommendations for what to do. So I think this is
I got
really
a question
important.
for Barry. I got a question for Barry. Barry, for most small businesses that are petrified of messing around with analytics, and since you're the man behind Unstuck and the whole change makers and all that stuff, like for our audience, what do you think would be like, like a reasonable couple data sets that they could analyze, like those, the 20% of data that's going to give you like 80% of like aha moment?
Well, I think as you were talking about, to understand who your customer is, right? What's the customer persona? So we actually did this. One of my customers who's selling her business, she sells like ESG, sustainable products. And I said, well, I'm just curious, are more of your customers, are they in red states or blue states, or is just kind of all around? Or do you have many customers in more conservative states who don't really care about this? And we actually took her sales data and we actually plotted it on a map, just like you were saying. And she was shocked how all her business, not all, 90% of her business is in quote unquote blue states. And that just gave her an insight into who her customer is. So I think, as Brett was talking about, the visualization, I think, is really important. And I think many of us are visual learners, and it really does an impact on us.
Yeah. I would suggest people check this out. I'm a pretty big Zoho Analytics user myself because I do like surveys and studies. And what's really great about it is you can take your survey data and it moves it right over into Zoho Analytics, and you create dashboards and aggregate it with other kinds of data and really find out, like Barry and even both are saying, find out things you would never guess. Find out so many things that might be important for you building a relationship or extending a relationship that you just couldn't do before because it's just too difficult and time consuming. So check that out. I think that's a really important one. Okay. We're running out of Barry time, so we got to get to this here.
That's a good thing for most people.
So, yeah, let me pull this up. So the NFIB, what's that? National Federation of Independent Businesses or something like that. Wow, I didn't even expect to know that, but I think they do it, I guess, a monthly small business optimism index. And they just released the one for August, and apparently it fell 2.5 points in August to 91.2. And I think the key thing is this is the 32nd consecutive month below the 50-year average of 98. That's pretty significantly lower than the 50-year average. And then they have this uncertainty index. In this environment, are we really surprised that it's risen to its highest level in almost 4 years? So one of the thoughts around this is, well, it's not just the thoughts. There's some real data, which is the number one issue that they found in their survey that people are kind of saying this is the reason why I'm pessimistic or not as optimistic as I could be, is inflation. But the inflation score did go down from July to August by 1 point. So do what you want with that.
It's the lowest since 2021.
Yeah. So but it's still, before the pandemic, prices are still significantly higher than they are now. Well, they are now than they were back then, even though they're coming down. Let's put it like that. But people are still not feeling very great about the current economic situation. So the question is, in addition to the serious concerns about inflation and potential, although we've been talking about recession for a long time, and it doesn't feel like we haven't gotten there, even with some of the the hype around it. But the question is, since we are in a presidential election year, what role, and I'm not asking specifically about, who you're voting for or anything, but I just was curious to get your take on what role do you think the presidential election plays on how people feel, how small businesses feel about where they are currently in their business. I have some thoughts of my own, but I would love to. Barry, why don't you go? Because we're going to lose you in 4 minutes.
I don't know if you remember James Carville, who's now a pundit, but he was President Clinton's advisor. And he had a sign hanging in the Little Rock headquarters that said, "It's the economy, stupid." Right. And I think that in most elections, it's about the economy. People vote with their pocketbook. I think that people have very short memories to what it was like 4 years ago during, the COVID pandemic. A lot of people are really concerned about, what things kind of cost. But I'm not surprised that the uncertainty index is up because you have the candidates from two major parties that they profess they're going to take the country in two different directions. I believe that Kamala Harris will take it in a similar direction it's going now, because obviously she's the vice president to Joe Biden. But Donald Trump has said he's going to take it in a vastly different direction. So depending on what happens, I think people are nervous about how it's going to affect them. Now, that being said, I think small business owners are always nervous, no matter what, right? I think as much as we are a hopeful group, we are a pessimistic group, right? We have nightmares all the time about losing our customers, losing our best employees, the prices going up. But it is a hard time for small business owners, right? Prices are expensive, vendor prices are expensive. People are costing probably 20% more than they did 3 or 4 years ago. So it is a difficult time. And that's why I was glad to see when Kamala Harris came out with this $50,000 tax credit to maybe help small businesses. I was glad she did that because people, and if she wins, I would like to see them implement it. But people always talk a lot about helping small businesses, but few politicians ever do anything about it, unfortunately. But I'm not surprised that people have uncertain times. And we have to understand it is always about the economy because people vote their pocketbooks.
Can I ask, before you have to jump, do you separate when you vote, when you go to pull that lever, are you voting mostly as a small business person, or are you voting as somebody who's just, an individual who wants to see a certain direction for the country?
For this election or a normal election?
I guess we're going to go with this election. Okay.
Well, in this election, to me, it's not a normal election because I think the candidates are so drastically different, right? And like a lot of people, I'm more against one candidate rather than being really incredibly for another candidate. I think normally I really vote a combination of financial issues, which I'm much more conservative on, and also social issues that I'm much more liberal on. So it's really a combination of those two things. I think, again, as Taylor Swift said, everyone should do their research and decide. I have a hat that says vote, period. I don't care who you support, but if you want to participate in our democracy, you should vote and not sit one out.
Okay. Thanks, man. Thanks for jumping in and joining us. This is great. And we hope you'll come back and join us.
You invite me anyway. I'll come back for episode 6. You let me know.
Okay. Thanks, man. Have a great weekend. That was an interesting comeback about this election versus a typical election. What do you guys think? How do you look at it? How do you determine when you go to pull the? Well, I was just going to say pull the lever. Right? Does anybody pull a lever anymore?
Press the button.
Press the button. How do
Fill
you
in the
look at
bubbles.
it? Do you go in as a small business person first, or a member of a community or a society or whatever? How do you look at it?
I go based off of like what is going. I mean, there's a lot of issues, and for anyone really, it's there's an importance of issues. There's economy. There's hey John,
Look who showed up. Didn't you get some dental work done?
No.
Oh, something happened to the choppers. Anyway, you entered at just as we were getting to the meat. So we are talking about. I'll set the stage, then we'll get back to you, Leland. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So the NFIB came out with their monthly small business optimism index. It fell a couple of points from July to August. One of the things that we're just starting to discuss is, in addition to like the number one thing that they stated was the main reason is inflation, but really curious about where politics, and I guess in particular the presidential election coming up, where does this factor into how a small business feels about the current economic environment they're participating in? So Leland was just getting ready to jump in and talk about it from his perspective.
Everyone has their top list, and for every person it's going to be different. I've seen businesses that really push the social issue, and they kind of, in the way that they show, I could tell it's like, okay, you're voting on more of a social issue rather than an economical issue. And then there are going to be other people who are going to be more economical rather than social. And I think that it kind of just, and that's where I am. I'm more of an economical issue. And it's like, how is this going to affect me in my economic situation? How am I going to be able to earn money with this candidate or this candidate? What's going to be best for me and my family and my future? That's usually how I go.
Are you looking for me? I can tell you.
Yes.
I'm always gonna start with the same statistic. 33 million small businesses, 27 million of them are solopreneurs. They have no full-time employees.
Look at this. Even look, I came with props for you.
Ooh.
You know what they call those folks? They call them pass-through businesses. Businesses who are really they're set up legally as partnerships, S corps, or so they don't really have employees, but they are companies. So out of the 34.3 million small businesses, 33 million are small business pass-through businesses.
And I call them super consumers, right? As a super consumer, you can see I am right now being a consumer in my home, right? Talking to you from a $6,000 laptop. Right. I'm sure that most consumers have not invested that level, just like you, Brett, have not invested. We invest in different things.
Calling me out for it.
What I think the part that's really, really important is one of the things that I'm noticing that I think is reflected in this NFIB study is the fact that we talk about inflation rate being high or low, but prices are not coming down. And I'm not seeing incomes, whether you want to call it disposable income that an entrepreneur might use, however you want to call that. I'm not seeing that entrepreneur has as much. I'm gonna use the word disposable income, meaning like I'm so glad I don't have to buy a $6,000 computer this year, because that would really hurt. Okay. So having said that, when it comes to quote unquote pulling the lever, I actually take a more economic stance at it from the term of, and I wish more bigger businesses would look at it this way. We want customers who have money to give to us. If customers don't have money, it's really, really hard, even if what you're selling is cereal. Because cereal is really expensive. Everything is really expensive. And when consumers don't have money, when small businesses don't have money, they're not as likely to purchase from other businesses. I mean, this is a real problem. So when I look at who I'm going to vote for, I actually look way back in history and I look at consistently which group of individuals consistently delivered and made it easier for workers to work, consumers to buy and spend their money, and for small businesses to have access and launch and open. That's one of the other things that I liked about what I heard in the debate. And I really would hope that something like this would happen, because it's really hard to start certain kinds of small businesses. You know,
so the $50,000 kind of startup money.
yeah, like, you know, I was talking to a lady who wants to start a daycare. She's got a building. She's building a building. There's licensing involved. There's like a lot of, there's a barrier to entry to doing certain businesses. And I would like to see, this is where I tend to run, you know, I would like to see it easier to start a small business, you know, but I would like to see more protection for consumers as well.
Okay, before I toss it over to Mr. Lawson, my laptop was over $5,000 3 years ago. There, even so, I don't. Well, why don't you call? If you're going to call anybody out for a cheap laptop, you better look at your boy John Lawson. I can't even do certain things with our stream because I'm afraid I'm going to blow his laptop up. So I just wanted to point that out before.
We're in the tech space, and so I assume that all of us having investments in equipment that we don't have maybe
you would think
in the kitchen.
Yeah, you would think that, but I'm not. Anyway, Mr. Lawson, what do you have to say about the role of you being a business person has in the way that you vote?
Well, you know, I don't know. You don't want to get involved in voting and stuff with me. But I will say this, couple of things. On the business level, I just came back from the SBDC National Conference. And honestly, the amount of small business resources, and I've been a small business since, 2001. And I had no idea that there were so many programs and so many opportunities for small businesses. And I just don't think, I don't think enough of us are educated enough on what is out there. And there's a lot out there, and they're out there to help small businesses because small business is so important to the economy. And a lot of government programs are funded. The SPD, the SBDC is part of the SBA. And if we don't have the right leadership that has the right understanding, then that could have a trickle-down effect to the programs that help these small businesses. But also, I found one of the biggest problems that, as I go up to these tables, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know. Oops, I said the right word. But I was like, I didn't know y'all did that. Really? I'm seeing the FDIC has a table. And I'm like, what are you going to talk to me about? And the IRS has a table and they're trying to shake my hand. I'm like, don't touch me.
No,
don't touch me.
Put some handcuffs on you.
And it's like, but there's really a lot of these programs have a big problem with outreach. They don't know how to communicate what they have to offer through the channels that they have. So it's like they got all this money and it's like, and it's like, they're handing me this flyer and I'm like, really? This is how you're communicating? Let me ask you.
A flyer? Did you say a flyer?
Yeah,
did he just freeze up?
It's his laptop.
You know what? Oh, there he is. He's back. Welcome back. So they gave you a flyer, but you know what, John? I'm so glad you mentioned that. Because like I work with SCORE and I work with a local organization here in Cleveland whose mission it is to make manufacturers successful. You guys, just on the meeting today, we were talking about exactly what you said, John. There are certain counties like in Ohio, there is money to be gained if you are doing certain things. There is free money for small businesses. And they're here to help you, whether it's with consulting, whether it's with operations. Like you said, so many great resources, but it's very difficult for them to get the word out.
So let's talk a little bit about this, because I'm assuming these programs have been around for years and years. Doesn't matter what what president is in at that current time. It sounds like these programs have been there. Or am I wrong? Does it depend on what administration is in that these programs are available? I have no idea. Does anybody here?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm wondering if John would know, except he's frozen.
This is what I'm talking about. Even I've been trying to get him to get a new laptop for years. I'm not kidding. This is just frustrating.
I mean,
this is the usual occurrence.
The organizations have been around. I just do wonder. I don't know what the impact is depending on who's there. Was it you or was it John that said that, like, everybody talks about small businesses. Maybe it was Barry, but like, there's never any real on the court action. It's never like some priority. It's all just like this lip service. So if there were such a thing, that it would be a priority, maybe there would be more opportunity to get the word out to all these small businesses that there are programs, there is funding, there are either free services or significantly lower cost services that can be subsidized by funding that like nobody knows about.
That's kind of I know we kind of went a little further away than I was expecting, but I mean, it sounds like there's already a lot of stuff out there that most people still don't know about, which does not sound like it's a indictment on any party or anything like that, except for it just feels like the system that's been put in place, sending out flyers is not going to get it. I mean, we're in 2024.
Leland, this sounds like a story to me. Wouldn't that? I wonder, like, what it would take. It'd be like herding cats to really, have this list of resources, because you do have to jump around all over. Every state has something. Different counties have things. I mean, my God.
Yeah. Well, everyone's different. All of these, and we've been writing about grants and trying to kind of spread the word about small business grants. And they're all over the place. Every agency has their own grants. Governments, local, state, county, federal. I mean, it goes all the way down to little neighborhoods that are specifically for a certain, area for like disaster or something like that, all the way up to a national level to where anyone who's a small business owner can apply for it as long as you're in the United States. And so trying to find ways to kind of meld them all together, that, as you said, it'd be like herding a bunch of drunk cats. I would even, put a little bit more into it.
The race for people with no sense of direction, right?
As long as we're just herding the cats and not, anyway, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Gotta stay away from that one. It's kind of like frustrating. If there's all this stuff out there, it's not about the stuff being there. It's about letting people know that the stuff is available. That would seem like should be the easiest part of this equation, getting people to know what's out there.
The best thing for a small business owner is to probably look for their local agencies, their state agencies, their county agencies, and follow them on social media, because that's where they're going to be putting out their grants, their opportunities, the fairs or opportunities for businesses to be able to put themselves out there. That's really the best way, I would imagine, for a small business owner to kind of take advantage of some of these things.
Do you think it's a matter of certain kinds of businesses that are looking, let's say, for government contracts or something like that? I think those companies know where to start looking for help. But if you're like not planning on a business that's not like that, that might be just like a florist or a hair salon, do they typically look towards the government, or do they kind of like start out of their living room when they were doing certain things, and then they kind of build from there? Because it just feels like, if I've gone to like supplier diversity kind of things, and those folks are in the know when it comes to contracting and grants and things. But other kinds of businesses, like I would have never done that. I would never think about looking for that stuff. I'm just like, all right, I think I know I can do this. oh, I got some contacts over here that I can get in. And then it kind of grows from there without really necessarily looking for some of these things that John talked about.
Contact your SBA. Every city has some sort of an SBA, multiple, and that's kind of like the hub for all of the other operations and opportunities. So through the SBA, you can get to the SCORE, you can get to the SBDC, you can get to the urban leagues and all that kind of stuff.
All right, let me
that was my question. Thank you, John. I'm so glad you came back to say that, because that was my question.
I've never ever heard anybody say that before, but even you've worked with the SBA or SBDC, right? Before
I worked with no, I don't say I work with SCORE. I've done some SCORE presentations. Let's say that I've talked to a bunch of SCORE people.
And I know, John, I mean, even me back in the day, I spoke at a SCORE event, but I never think about going there for real help. I mean, is that the problem?
Oh my God. You know what people don't know? This is to John's point, call your SBA, reach out to your local thing. Like, here's something nobody knows about SCORE. Let's say, okay, well, John's like doing e-commerce, right? And let's say somebody wants to do e-commerce too, and they like to a certain place, but they don't have the millions of dollars to pay John. Because we know John requires millions. John will not talk to you unless you like just,
biting my tongue here.
Right? So exactly. Well, what you do is you go to SCORE and you say, hey, local SCORE, I have these very specific e-commerce questions. And John, the bold one, the cold one, colder ice, is way too expensive.
What is going on here?
But they will find you, and they will find you an expert in that specific thing. So whether it is not just marketing, I'm talking Facebook marketing, but you got to know what you want. And that's actually, unfortunately, what I found is a lot of the SCORE audience, they might be startups, even very small businesses that are looking to scale, but they really don't know what to ask.
And I think some businesses think they're too small for the Small Business Administration. And these are the ones that really don't ever ask. And if you don't ask, it's like,
they don't tell.
You don't get
you
fed.
Don't ASK, you don't GET.
Wow.
Yep.
This conversation really went in some really interesting directions. I'm glad they did, but I had no idea to go there. But one thing I think, John, you need to start looking for grants for laptops or something, because you definitely need one.
It's not a laptop. You ever drive in your neighborhood and see the cable guy and you'd be like, oh Lord, here we go. And that's where I'm at. They're messing around.
I don't know how to top that one. So, all right. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident or how good do you feel about your business in this particular environment? Whoever wants
politically?
I just said this particular environment. You can take it whatever way you want to go, man. I mean, but like, give me a score and give me a score and give me a reason why you scored like that.
I feel a 5. And the reason why I feel a 5 is because I always feel a 5. Because
so you never deviate.
I try not to, it's almost like the Olympics, you got to throw out the high years and the low years and then try to find that. Because look, hey man, every decade we're going to go through this, every decade. So it is what it is. And if you're going to be in business for a long time, you got to learn to roll with this stuff, because you're going to have great years and you're going to have bad years. It's like your marriage.
Even in the same question, I'll leave the marriage part out. But, but what's your grade and why?
Oh, I'm with John. I was actually even going to say 4. And this is just me personally. And it references what I was talking about earlier. The business that I am in is in the business of marketing advice and marketing strategy and getting customers and all that other kind of stuff. But just like back in my manufacturing days, when you have to choose between food and putting gas in your car and doing a marketing plan, I think marketing plan loses. right?
Yeah.
Just like in manufacturing, if costs have gone up and you have to buy raw materials and you need a machine to increase productivity, throwing 50 grand at a trade show, not going to happen. Right. And so I actually, and I'm sure lots of people would disagree with me on this, but I have come to feel, I think John used the word feel. I have come to feel like people treat marketing as an expense, right? Because if it's coming out of my pocket and I'm not getting something in my hand immediately, it's an expense. Number two, it's treated as disposable income, as entertainment, as like, ooh, I got a few extra dollars. Let's go out to a fancy place to eat just this one time.
Red Lobster, here we come.
I don't know if that's a good example, but okay.
Red Lobster went bankrupt, so no Red Lobster.
Yeah,
Here
that's
we
not
don't
a good because of VCs, and that's like a whole other conversation. So
Oh yeah.
All right, Leland.
I am sitting at currently at about a 4 or 5. And I'm sorry, John, my marriage doesn't go through that. It's always up here. It's always high.
Yeah.
Pure
Good
bliss.
answer. Good answer.
His wife is in the next room.
Watching. But I mean, there were times, a couple of years ago where riding the high, it was the best time ever. 9, 8, 9, really great. And then, it went down and things had to happen. Things have stabilized. But, I'm sitting and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to take what John says. I'm going to sit at like a 4 and 5. I'm going to start sitting on assets and probably, saving up for means to actually make sure that I'm stable. Just because I've gone through the roller coaster of business and I don't want to have to go down into a 2 or a 3 ever again. So I'm going to act as if I'm always in like a 4 or a 5 just to make sure that I don't go back down to a 2 or a 3.
So,
how about you, Brent?
I think I'm pretty steady too. I don't know if that's a defensive mechanism. It sounds like it's like that for Leland, or actually all of us. Apparently, it's like you don't want to get too high because some lows are going to be coming. You don't want to get too low because you typically find a way out. And that's kind of how I approach it. I don't really change my spending habits. It's typically the same, whether it's good
Same
or bad
Rams
times.
Yep.
This is not the same Rams hat. This is brand new gear, by the way.
I don't change my spending habits. This is brand new gear.
Well, I always spend
Word.
brand new money on Rams gear. I mean, ankle change.
Start of the season, you got to celebrate.
Yeah, well, yeah. Unfortunately, not last week. But anyway, no, it's like I don't spend more than I think I have, whether I think I have a lot now or I don't. But I think you're right. I think maybe, and I don't know if that's because we've been around and we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and so we kind of don't get too high when things are going really great, and you don't get too low when things are going bad.
I got a question for John. So something that hit me while we were having this little conversation, and after everybody did their answers, the first word that popped up for me was like risk. And whether you're risk averse or whether, because we all know, right, the whole entrepreneurial thing is you are taking risks. And I know because John deals with products and he just most recently had to empty out a giant warehouse with all kinds of stuff and shoelaces and all kinds of stuff, product that he had in there. John, talk about like risk and are we missing out on something because of this sitting where we are?
Oh, wow. That's good. But it is true that these are the times where some of the greatest companies are made. It's like in the worst of the economy, some of the greatest companies are created, and it is because of being a risk taker, and absolutely I'm in that mode of taking a risk. And you know what? Here's a great, if you saw Microsoft event earlier this year, and they had Sam Altman from OpenAI on, and he said something that has stuck with me like for the last 3 months. He said, that we are in the midst of a shift change, a complete change on, how business is done. The same way it was done, like with the internet, we're kind of with that with AI, he believes, right? And it's a great time to take some risk. And he said, one of the things, those things that you've been thinking about or putting off doing, now is the time to get it done and go ahead and do it, because we're at one of these great pivotal points. And I think that's part of the pain we're feeling. Before you push out the baby, you get the pains. And we might be in one of those times.
You know so much about that, John.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say nothing about that. You know what? But I'll just say I'm staying away from the baby pain thing. But
I'm the only one who's done that over here.
Yeah, so I'm not saying a thing. I'll defer to you on that one, even. But I think we all take certain kinds of risks, and sometimes they're bigger risks than others. I mean, it does depend on the time and circumstance and the frame of mind you're in. Like, I think a lot of us take a risk just not going to a regular job. Although I don't know if there's such thing as a regular job anymore. But there was a time, like, my dad never understood why I left my first gig out of school, because it was good company, steady pay, benefits, all that kind of stuff. But I was miserable, so I left and became an independent contractor. My dad never understood that until the day he left. But the risk to me was staying. I don't want to be miserable. I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. And I wanted the circumstances. I didn't want to go into a cubicle and go to an office all the time. So I think there are levels of risks, and I think depending on the stage of life or stage of business you're in, you take them, or you don't. But I think it seems like, just to wrap things up, it feels like what we've just talked about. We started with, what role does the election play and how we kind of operate and feel with our businesses. It feels like, I don't know if we meant to say this, but it seems like we said it doesn't feel like it's as important as I thought it might have been when we first started this conversation. Because it seems like there are things that have been there forever that a lot of us just didn't realize were out there and could really take advantage of. It doesn't even matter who the president was. So maybe there's more things that are there outside of what we get the media hammering us on, that are actually even more important than some of the stuff that they focus on. I don't know. That's what it feels like to me. I guess we'll be finding out, because we got 2 months.
TikTok.
Yeah. Anyway, any parting thoughts? We'll start with Ivana.
Oh my God, parting thoughts. You know what? Parting thoughts is, I'm going to go off with what we just talked about, because that's what stuck with me out of this, what I got out of this conversation. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, is maybe to look for areas of opportunity in your business where you can take a risk. And maybe that risk is just a small thing, right? Just take a step forward, because just like John said, we're in a space of change. Really think about, what small risk are you comfortable in taking? Or is that like things that don't go together, because risk by definition is uncomfortable? But like, sort of, get to your line. I'm going to think about that. I don't know what that is just yet. Maybe it's just being on the panel with you guys. That might be my risk. I don't know. But but that's my parting thought for the day.
Leland.
It is a risk going into small business, but with risk comes reward. I've looked down the barrel of, going to try to get a 9 to 5, And I realized that if I'm in a 9 to 5, I'm always going to be in a 9 to 5 until I retire. You know, and there's no way to kind of break out into kind of like a higher status unless you've gotten like a really high paying skill. But with a small business, anyone can elevate themselves to a higher standard or to a higher status. You know, even if you're going to be an electrician or a plumber, those people make really good money in breaking out, making a business for yourself. I have so many friends that are plumbers, electricians, and they work for another person and they get paid just the base wage. But if they were to go and do their own business and they were to hire people, they do so much better. There's risk, of course, but the chance for reward is just so much greater.
Fab.
The cold one, the bold one.
Yeah, for out of this conversation, if nothing else, guys, go to SBA.gov and just look around, see what other things are out there besides, the business loan or the funding. There's all kinds of stuff that you could probably be getting into from local, getting some local assistance. So give that a try, see what's out there, what events you can attend, and really learn about opportunities that are there to help support your business.
And if anybody knows where there's a fund that John can start to buy a new laptop or get some Wi-Fi, please let us all know. Anyway, and you can follow the cold one, the bold one, John Colorice Lawson, and myself at 5:00, where I'll school him a little bit longer on some things that come up during the course of an hour.
Anyway, hopefully his internet's better at that point.
We can only hope. Anyway,
crossed,
I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will be back next Friday. There'll be lots of other stuff to talk about. And by the way, Canva, I'm going to hook you up with Steve Miranda from Oracle. Listen to him. See you next week.